City, a very good morning. You look like you're deep in thought. What's not happening?
Actually, I'm deep in thought. It's what we're discussing.
Yes.
And how it is, we need to discuss it more.
Right.
Because any conversation we have in this country that involves politics, it's never an honest conversation. No. It starts by being biased. It's skewed in one direction even as it goes on.
Okay.
And it gets even more skewed. In fact, it becomes circumlocucious when you now bring in a politician.
Okay.
Because somebody can be here for an hour even too. And when you analyze what you've discussed, this person has actually told you very little. Beyond repeating the rhetoric that you keep hearing over and over and over.
Yes.
And then the focus is on the political affiliation that they belong to and the benefits. And those benefits have to do with how badly this current government is doing.
Yes.
And how they hope to do better by changing policies. When it is spoken of, it sounds very good. Then you wonder, what on earth is this person talking about really?
You know what tends to happen in the Kenyan political space?
Yes.
Depending on where you are seated, you speak the truth, you can be rewarded. And you've got a very, a solid political trajectory.
Right.
And then sometimes you speak the truth, then you can be penalized. But probability of being penalized for speaking the truth is always very high. That is why, as the city has indicated, people are essentially walking on broken eggshells, especially the politicians.
Yes.
Because as you're having this conversation, probably your party leader is watching, or his handlers are paying attention. And as soon as you're done, boss, ulikuwa unasema nini hapo ya RG? And then you land yourself in trouble.
Actually,
and it's not limited
right.
to Kenya. I mean, like, if you've been following the US politics the last few days, there is Donald Trump, with the MAGA support. And then there's that lady called Marjorie Greene.
Yes.
Who has taken now a divergent position from what she's been saying before.
And Trump actually has withdrawn his support for her.
Yeah, and Trump has said, I'm not sure whether I'm going to support her anymore.
But it's because she's been insisting on these Epstein files. Imefika mahali sasa Trump anasema, let this thing go, bana.
Like she's going to be penalized kwa kuongea ukweli.
Yeah, and you're right, because I've seen here in this studio once in a while where there are certain people we host and midway the conversation, unaona conversation na change because an SMS imeingia and you can tell someone has been told
the experience at Damascus moment.
Your direction umechukua achana nayo, so it's kawaida.
So maybe you should encourage your wageni wenu kuacha simu kwa reception.
Sindio?
If you want to have a honest conversation.
Sindio?
Yes.
First of all, welcome Dismas Mokua. That is Dismas Mokua. Of course, he's a very good friend of this show. I want to read a couple of comments here which are germane to the so if you allow me, let me just start with Emmanuel Templar. Amesema, I once saw a clip of Winnie Odinga saying all she knows is politics. Seriously, she would be an okay, hapa ni typo, but I'll read it as it is. She is obviously a nobody if it wasn't for her father's name and appointing her as Yala MP. Politics isn't career. My take says if ODM breaks, it will be because of these people: Winnie, Ruth, Orengo, Sifuna, Babu. They seem to be hell-bent on taking ODM to a certain direction which most ODM members are not comfortable with. Benedict Magero giving Professor his flowers. Today Professor Omenya is dispensing wisdom. Well, then there's who else? Let me see. I don't want to repeat the same folks. Sonnet anasema, hello City and Movie, Ed9 Radio Generation. Well, Sonnet, a very good morning to you. So we're here to talk about basically ODM and if the center will hold. I'm sure, I don't know if you've had the chance to take a look at this morning papers. They're all talking about ODM at 20 and some of the things that were said by Winnie Odinga, Babu Owino and Sifuna and the very many leaders who spoke in Mombasa or rather in the coast. What's your take as far as ODM is concerned? Will the center hold?
Will the center hold? That is actually assuming that there's a center, yes.
Okay.
But when you look at Mr. Raila Odinga and ODM and the conversations we've had the last couple of days, it means that and in my community we're not supposed to discuss the people who've passed on, but it's very clear there was no succession strategy or plan within ODM. And Raila was the ODM and ODM
You're saying
was
there was
Raila
no
Odinga.
Apparent or there was no strategy?
There was no succession planning
process.
How do we know this?
If there was if there was a plan or a strategy, then it would have been seamless. Right now, every person within ODM is stating a party position. All the elected leaders, they're stating a party position. You would expect in a more structured setup or corporate setup or political setup that it's a seamless transition. That if the party leader existed, then the deputy party leader obviously takes charge. But for ODM, you've got so many party leaders, 3 of them, and it appears there's no senior among those 3 who can take over. That is number one. And then number 2, everybody, it appears now, had a phobia, or they liked Mr. Raila Odinga, because again, he was the only person who had capacity to dispense a pleasure and inflict pain. Actually, and this is not limited to the political space. We've had a number of religious and church leaders in their sermons recently. The way they were preaching, they would have never, ever delivered those sermons if Mr. Raila Odinga were alive. Even the messages you saw yesterday coming, the day before yesterday from Mombasa, all of them were not coordinated. Again, that shows you that Raila coordinated his messaging. But the day before yesterday, people were pulling in different directions, and everybody claiming that they've had a word with Raila Odinga before he passed on. And in my view, there's a very high probability that ODM disintegrates into 3 political parties, or maybe it's going to have 3 factions. There's one group which keeps on going to the top of Mount Kenya and saying, Baba alituacha kwa broad-based administration. Obviously, then you have cabinet ministers like Mbadi, Joe, and Oparanya, as well as... And Opio, yes. As well as... Gladys Wanga, Junet Mohamed were saying that it was Baba's intention that we stay in broad-based till 2027. And in 2027, we are going to review whether or not we've got capacity to form a government or we are going to be within a coalition. And they said that if indeed you respected Baba's views, and if you want his legacy to live on, ametuacha hapa kwa chama. And that is what we must follow.
Is it possible, Mokua, that there was actually a succession, what is it called, like a will of sorts, but they are just not going to follow it because now it's free for all?
Well, if there was I don't know whether to call it a will in the political space, but if there was a plan, then it should have been made public and it should have been executed immediately upon his demise. But again, you realize majority of political party leaders in Africa do not want to have a succession plan because they want to be the plan. They know that at the moment you identify somebody who is likely to succeed, then they may end up becoming lame ducks, and then power will shift to the deputy. I mean, if you go to most countries in Africa, or even when you look at our deputy governors, for some reason, the governor will ensure that the person who is going to be is a deputy is a weak person. Somebody who may not necessarily have capacity to take over as the president, to take over as a governor. You can even talk about the presidents today.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to have a weak deputy. I mean, in some countries, like for instance, would you be knowing who is the deputy president in Uganda?
We rarely hear of him.
Yeah, because...
sorry.
Yeah. Because now people want to have...
And they also have a prime minister, right?
Yes, they do.
We rarely hear of him as well.
Yeah.
And several deputies.
It could be her. Well, the speaker. The speaker is her, yeah. So it's a strategy because they know the moment you have a very clear plan, then people may start shifting alliances, and before you realize your deputy becomes very strong and they've taken over the show. Again, another tragedy we have is with political parties in Kenya. All the people who've been holding office within ODM did it at the pleasure of Mr. Raila Odinga. ODM has never had an election, so that the people who are holding office, they're there because of the ODM rank and file. In other parties like ANC or CCM, you have elections and the people holding office are there because of the members. But here in vote. Yeah, I mean, people have gone to a national delegates conference, whatever it is, and they voted. But in the obtaining session for ODM, everybody who is occupying a national leadership position, it's because of Raila Odinga and all those committees. So in as much as they say there were institutions that supported democracy within ODM, there were no institutions, because who are you to go against Baba's will?
Yeah.
If you go against Baba's will, you'll be punished. And in my view, those people who claim that they respect Baba's legacy and intention, is the one we are told that who had a conversation with President Ruto. Then they came up with a 10-point agenda, which is what has been guiding them. And in my view, that is what should make them take a decision. But right now, ODM is faced with, they've got a tough decision.
Yes.
Mombasa, the people are saying, are we going to be a party known for our street credentials? That wherever we don't accept an issue, we go back to the streets? There seems to be one faction which says that is an option which must always be on the table.
Yeah.
Then there's another one which is saying that the only reason why ODM does exist, in fact, one said it's not an NGO, is to secure political power. And this political power can be secured either through forming government or being part of a coalition. And then a gentleman by the name Sam Atandi, who is emerging as a strong voice within ODM, he comes up and he says, in his assessment, there's nobody within ODM today who's got capacity and competence to run for the presidency. So it appears that he's supporting President Ruto for a second term. And that appears to be the position taken by the ODM experts.
Do you agree with Atandi, though?
I mean, right now, getting somebody from ODM who's got capacity and competence to take on President Ruto is a tall order. One, I'm persuaded by his logic. You know,
what is this that President Ruto has that anyone who goes against him will need to have?
A national appeal.
Yeah, and even before you go to the national appeal, as it is suggested, if you are, I think any Kenyan of sound mind, you know, the constitutional framework about who can run for president, anybody can, literally.
Even you can run for president.
Yeah, for president, yeah. But do you have the requisite infrastructure? And infrastructure, the first thing is whether you've got a national brand, whether that brand can create both emotional and rational connection with voters. There are people who would vote for Ruto, actually to use Raila Odinga.
Yes.
There are people who would vote for Raila Odinga as a president for emotional connection.
Okay.
They just like Baba because he created an emotional connection. And then the others who voted for Raila Odinga because of a rational connection. They've gone through the manifesto. They say, okay, this manifesto, it's got very good ideas that we can run with. But majority of people, especially in the third world, it's all emotional.
Okay.
That we come from the same village. My name is Onyango, and I come from Bondo, so you Twetu, or whether from Meru. And so they don't vote around ideas. Now, for Ruto, you recall during the last election, he was swimming against the tide. At that stage, Oburu Odinga said, we've got the state. What else do we need to win to secure the presidency? They knew they had it in the bag. But outside having the national brand recognition, then he also got a grassroots infrastructure across the nation.
Yes.
Now, there's nobody within ODM, as we speak, who commands that respect. Part of the reason why the meeting in Mombasa was chaotic, and everybody was reading, I think there were 1 million hymn books, and everybody was just doing his speech, is because there's nobody who can call the house to order.
Okay.
When you watch President Ruto's rallies, and people are given the opportunity to speak, all statements are coordinated. There's a very clear line of thinking.
Yes.
So the first speaker makes a point. The second will buttress. The third will, support it. There's a very clear theme.
So it's choreographed.
Yeah. And if you go out of the script, then you'll be punished. You may even miss an helicopter ride.
I have a question. And the reason I was asking you, what would this individual need to have so that they can, go head to head with President Ruto? And you've answered me. So let me pick a random person. Edwin Sifuna, the senator for Nairobi. If between now and the election date, he goes around the country campaigning and the ODM party rallies behind him and they say, man, in a broad-based, you know what, to hell with it. Let's focus on this one individual. And I've picked up Sifuna. We could put anyone in that position, but let me take Sifuna for now. Is it possible for them to actually capture that power?
No.
And Sicha said no, and
he didn't even think about it.
Yeah, he didn't think about it. But I wanted to break it down from starting from.
Yeah.
There's nothing called ODM party in the absence of Raila Odinga.
Okay.
People followed Raila Odinga wherever he was, Ford Kenya, NDP, LDP. Wherever he goes, people are following this gentleman called the Enigma, Raila Odinga. Agwambo. So people are following him. It's not like, say, in the US or in the UK where you say, okay, we are Labour, you are Conservatives, you are Republican. So, there's no rallying idea for ODM. People are rallying around Raila Odinga.
So you're saying that they did not have an ideology. The ideology was Raila.
If there was an ideology, the ideology was Raila Odinga. And in Kenya, we don't have ideologies. When you look at all these political parties and you look at their manifestos, I think the manifestos, all of them were authored by Professor Anyang' Nyong'o and company long time ago. And the people keep on taking the manifestos and...
Even the oldest party, KANU.
Well, KANU is not part of the conversation at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying now when we go to multi-party politics,
yes.
I mean, I'm sure you are aware that when most of these political parties are launching their manifestos, 99.9% of the party membership get to socialize with the party manifesto on that evening when it's been launched. Yeah. During the last campaigns for Kenya Kwanza, they went countrywide and they had country fora. So people presented the ideas. That's when you would say that there was an element of public participation in crafting the manifesto. However, for most political parties, the party leaders got a presidential campaign secretariat where they assemble what they refer to as public intellectuals, subject matter experts, to come up with the ideas. In fact, during the launch of some of those manifestos, some of the party leaders have no idea of the content in that manifesto. And you recall during, I don't remember whether it was NASA or CORD, they were launching the manifesto, and there were about 3 different versions of manifestos. Yeah, there was one version, there was another second version, and there was another version. And then it emerged that special purpose vehicles or cartels had inserted a number of projects. So that this is the promise you're making to the nation, that we are going to have this kind of infrastructure. So that now when they win office, then they can go to the party leader and say, Mr. President, you promised Kenyans that you are going to do X, Y, Z. Yeah. We have put together resources to finance this. So nobody was rallying around an idea. That is why people should pay attention to what Samatand is saying. That right now as it is, well, technically speaking, any member of ODM will run.
But let me ask you again, Dismas. There is... Siti here reminded me that in 2002, when President Kibaki won the presidency, literally it was at the 11th hour when they met somewhere. I think it was at Serena. They really didn't agree, and then they found themselves at Uhuru Park, and then Raila at the time said siata Kibaki ametosha, and that's how Kibaki ended up being the running mate, and that rather not running mate but presidential candidate, and that's how he eventually became president of the republic. Again, borrowing from that, looking at what is happening in ODM right now, is it not possible that there can be a similar moment where, yes, there's a lot of confusion right now. Yes, we are not seeing that, individual that figurehead that can actually embody what Raila was. But is it not possible that we can have another Flani Tosha, and then komsa that person becomes the person?
Yeah, you successfully compared apples and pies. First of all, you cannot compare former President Kibaki with anybody within the ODM infrastructure apart from Raila Odinga. You recall Kibaki was Minister for Health, was Minister for Planning, was a Vice President, and he was a national brand. And in a good part, the nation liked his intellectual infrastructure, and they knew this somebody would take the nation to the next level, and he was referred to as...
Is that why he had lost the elections that he had before? Because of all these wonderful qualities?
Yeah, because he was I don't remember exactly it's pronounced in his mother tongue. There is a man who sat on the fence. He never took any hard position, and I had the privilege of covering him when I was a cab reporter. So you present any issues around economics or business, he discusses it into detail. And don't forget that at that stage, people said they were sick and tired of President Moi's administration. So essentially, they wanted to...
You wanted to change.
Yeah, they wanted him out. And you remember, that election had a very high turnout, and Kibaki got a very impressive vote. So anybody going to the ballots knew who Kibaki is, and Kibaki was already a national institution. So people knew who this gentleman is.
Yeah,
He's been around the block for a while. And also,
But Dismas, there are other people who were also around the block for a while. There was Simeon Nyachae, there was Professor Saitoti, there was Gilu, Kalonzo was there. Yeah, I mean, but anyway, continue.
Yeah, so that is the first thing. And then number two, there's now nobody who's going to say Kibaki Tosha within the ODM framework or you need any political party in Kenya. Because you see, this is a thing called Kibaki Tosha. The only person, again, who had that capacity is Mr. Raila Odinga. So, while we are told in politics is the art of the possible, many things can happen. There's so many probabilities, there's so many permutations and combinations. But as we have this conversation, probability of that happening is almost zero.
Yeah.
Why I mentioned the 2 times Kibaki lost, 92 and 97, is this. See, there are events that took place from 97 that at that point in time catapulted Raila to a position that very few people had actually had in the country. Because when he left Kano, it is said and was witnessed, many other people also left. It was framed he left with these people, but they left.
He created a bandwagon effect.
Yes. Now, there are those who have various theories as to whether it was Moi's selection of Uhuru that they protested against, whatever the reasons were. But he was seen as the band leader of that particular movement. So his popularity was at an all-time high. Because ask yourself this simple question. How is it that somebody can come to a rally and say, Kibaki, ata Kibaki natosha ama Kibaki tosha, and people resonate with it? How? How does that happen?
Yep.
It means his voice at that point in time in history was listened to and trusted. At that point in time in history. Now, there are those who argue that perhaps had he himself stood for the presidency, that is perhaps the best opportunity he actually ever had for being president. Because his popularity was right up there. Moi had suffered the problem of having been in power for too long.
24 years.
People were actually tired. It's not that he had done anything fantastically wrong at that point in time, but 24 years people figured it was a long time.
Perhaps Raila at the time considered Kibaki at the time to probably have been his political senior because he had been vice president at one point and said, maybe wacha nimpatie nafasi ya kuwa president, then tapata yangu.
When such things happen, there are agreements that people have arrived at.
Yeah, behind the scenes conversation.
Yes, I am not privy to any of those things. The only thing that was in the public domain was that Raila had been promised the position of prime minister.
Or in 2002?
Yes.
There was an MOU signed.
Oh yeah, because there were conversations about the MOU.
And part of the problem and why he left was that the people within that particular government decided they're not going to honor the MOU. So he walked away.
Yeah, and also Simon Nyachae also had valid expectations that in fact he was going to be the Tosha candidate.
Yeah.
And when
he had very valid expectations, not just valid, very valid expectations.
When they went to Uhuru Park, did he think he was the Tosha candidate?
Actually, it was his rally.
Okay.
It was Nyachae's rally.
Also, they went to Nyachae's rally.
Yes.
And then they usurped that. Okay.
There's a right now they're working on
it's
the infrastructure.
Blurry, but
they're working on the infrastructure, but it's a short distance between the 5-star hotel and Uhuru Park.
It was a walking distance.
It was a walking
you just
distance.
Cross the road.
No,
you just cross the road.
Yes.
So when these people were leaving Serena, at the back of his mind, Nyachae knew that it was going to be
Nyachae
Tosha. He was rubbing his hands with glee and waiting for that moment. So when Mr. Raila Odinga pronounced himself, I suspect Nyachae broke into a sweat, and he was in a state of shock.
He broke into more than a sweat.
And then
be kind.
No. I am being factual. I'm not being facetious.
Okay.
Because under those circumstances, I mean, frankly, how would you feel?
Because you see now your frame of mind, you put your assets, resources, knowing you are going to wage a presidential campaign.
Yeah.
After Uhuru Park, now you're putting together your presidential campaign team, secretariat. You already had several political parties dancing to his drum beats. And when Mr. Odinga made the pronouncement, all hell broke loose. But Nyachae said, I must still run for president.
Yeah.
And he went ahead. He had a very poor performance. And he left office with an egg on his face.
I wonder the kind of presidency he would have had Honorable Nyachae gotten to that place. Anyway.
Yeah, if you look at his history being a former provincial administrator and the way these people run the systems, because one would argue that Nyashai understood Kenya like the back of his hand, having started from the lowest rank as I think a cab DO and going all the way becoming the head of the public service. He was a provincial commissioner, he was minister for finance, so he knew Kenya like the back of his hand. In my view, would have done a stellar job, and probably Kenya would have had an entirely different trajectory. Because when you look at some people, not necessarily his peers, but our colleagues like the late Mishuki, whichever docket Mishuki was given to handle, even if Mishuki was given a ministry without portfolio,
he delivered.
He would still deliver. When he was in transport, he delivered solid reforms. When he was in environment, he delivered solid reforms. So I suspect Nyashai would have done a very good job, and which is the reason maybe why we should be encouraging people, especially people who have served in the provincial administration, to run for political office, although I'm not sure whether Natembeya is a good example.
Why?
It seems to be stepping on the toes of everybody and blaming everybody else apart from himself for his current turbulence and position.
Well, is that not what we call playing politics?
Is he doing that perhaps because of, number one, the democratic space that has been allowed within political parties nowadays? But also, again, I want to go back to something you've said in terms of the crop of politicians we had at the time. You've mentioned President Kibaki, we've talked about Mishuki, we've talked about Simeon Nyachai. And when you look at all those individuals, they come from a certain era where things were done a certain way. Because perhaps the reason even why people would praise President Kibaki to an extent is because he came from an era where those politicians knew what they were doing and they knew what had to be done for them to deliver. But when you look at the other politicians that came after them, there have been problems, and very many problems at that.
Well, in my view, the biggest challenge or what is missing is character. Our early politicians and public servants of rank had character. They were aligned to our national and public interests, and they were literally serving Mura, Alima, or Wanjiru. They were very keen in taking Kenya to the next level.
They were nationalists.
Yeah. Look at somebody like Dr. Z. Onyonka, whose son is the Kisii senator. Look at Gekonyo Kiano. Look at Tom Mboya. People even without much education, but they came up with the session of papers, although Kenyans blame, the parts of Kenya which blame Tom Mboya for that session of paper. But they set Kenya on a very solid trajectory. Now, majority of the leaders you have today, public servants of rank, they consider their offices or they consider political power as a factor of production. You'd recall that before Aringo came in and they made reforms at the National Assembly, one would actually say that MPs used to literally earn peanuts. Yeah, they used to earn peanuts, but they still served the nation. But today, our elected leaders earn big obscene salaries. I understand that what a governor in Kenya is paid, I saw a publication somewhere, it's much higher if you do a statistical comparison with governors in the US. When you look at the kind of benefits you give to the members of the National Assembly. When you look at the facilities they enjoy. If you go to the National Assembly right now, there's even no space for parking. Yeah, the top of the range vehicles, the allowances they give themselves, the kind of largesse they enjoy, the kind of benchmarking trips they enjoy. They do everything they're not supposed to do. And then they come and say, then they ask all the Kenyans to tighten their belts. Yet wenyewe they're not doing that. But when you had those MPs in the past, with the kind of compensation they got, but they still took Kenyans to the next level. Then when you watched or listened to debates in the National Assembly, you were actually glued. Because when Paul Mwita is speaking, you want to absorb everything.
Yeah.
When Orengo is speaking, you want to absorb everything. When Kiraitu Murungi is speaking, you want to, even when Raila Odinga is answering, at some stage, we had the Prime Minister's question time, you want to absorb everything. But right now, majority of these guys, you begin to wonder whether they actually pay attention to what is happening at the National Assembly.
You're right, because even Professor Saitoti, again, that group of politicians, those guys, you could tell, I will borrow your word, they were nationalists.
They were nationalists.
Yeah.
if you look at even their thinking and the way they went about things, they even had an unwritten code about how much you should take as a bribe. It barely went beyond 20%. And the 20% was as a fact of what was already done and finished.
Yeah.
Not these ones where they take the money at source.
Nothing happens. Everything stalls.
Let me tell you, what we're calling corruption is a direct tax on development. And it's a tax that deprives us of all these governance things that we require, whether it's education, whether it is health, all security. That corruption is that tax. Everything that should represent development is hampered because of it. And it's taken.
You remember a few days ago, an MP admitted that with as little as 10,000 Kenyan shillings in a khaki envelope, an MP would change his position on a motion or on how they are going to vote. The President of the Republic of Kenya, the head of state and the head of government, has admitted in public that it is corruption domiciled within the National Assembly.
That people take bribes.
Yeah, within the National Assembly. Now, if you break down that statement, then it means that there's a very high chance that Kenya may lose its sovereignty status, because all you need is somebody with enough money to come and bribe our elected leaders. So you can have a cartel, you can have special interest groups who are not members of the National Assembly or Senate, influencing the way you're passing your legislation, influencing the way representation is done in Kenya, and influencing oversight.
There was a scandal actually a couple of years ago, and this happened during the Uhuru government, where there was a big biotech firm that came here, took our MPs to Coastal, paid them I don't know how much money to pass certain bills to do with GMO. And for me, when I heard that, because if a company that is worth billions, whose owners are billionaires themselves, can come and decide if our MPs can be bought for 10,000 bob, imagine what they would do for 1 million bob each. And for such a company giving our 290 plus MPs 1 million bob each, that is very little money for them, because that's close
to a drop of water in the ocean.
You don't need to give all 290.
Yes, there are specific ones that you will need to give, but let's assume it's all of them. So they're about,
for purposes of equity.
For the sake of this mathematics also.
So if you 270 million.
Let's talk about 290 them plus the nominated ones here and there.
So kila mtu anapewa.
The women rep. So let's even put it at 400 million. If you give 400, because there are those who will give more than the others. If we're talking about 400 million Kenya shillings, that is about 4 million USD. Actually, less than 4 million USD. For a billionaire, that is a drop in the ocean.
And that is what we've been saying times above number. That outside capacity and competence, look at the character. There's a gentleman from my neck of the hood, Dr. Protas Kebat Mumanyi, who served as an MP and a minister. And for the longest time, he had an old but well-maintained Volvo. But when folks used to see him drive around this battered Volvo, I mean a Volvo that I've seen better days, they look at him and they sneer. They say, what's wrong with this fella? This guy was an MP.
Yeah.
This guy was a minister. But look at the kind of vehicle he's driving. But he had said he was going to stick to the straight and narrow. Sometimes the expectations from society that when you become a PS or a cabinet secretary, people actually expect you to go and manipulate numbers in Nairobi. People expect you to go and steal.
People expect you to be a thief.
Yeah, people expect you to come back with loads. Because you remember when Professor Saitoti, when he became a minister, he used to drive a Peugeot, I think 504.
This is now Professor Saitoti.
Yeah, but now if you leave office with that kind of a car, then people will begin to ask questions whether or not this guy akona kill. What's wrong with him?
A good example.
That is why people say that they've gone to Nairobi to make money. They're making money. They're not harnessing the factors of production. Yeah, they're making money. They're not harnessing factors of production.
A good example is when Senator Okiya Mtata recently had an accident sometime either early this year or towards the late last year. And people discovered that he was driving a Nissan Advan, a vehicle that costs less than 1 million bob. People were shocked that a whole senator anafanya nini na Nissan Advan. And I was like, what is the problem?
Where do you think that particular mindset was incubated, and where do you think it then got developed? Where at what point in our history did we become these people who expect the people we have elected to steal the money we have elected them to protect, and that we actually expect them to exhibit their theft in these gory things that they do, the travel, what they talk about, what they drive, what they build. When did we take this turn? Because we take this turn, we seem to look for it, we seem to praise, then we complain about it. How confused are we?
Very confused. Very.
And also, if you're an elected leader, then you go back to the village and people come and they want to listen to your speech you're holding, coach with people. If you don't give them a coin, they will yawn. As David Maraga was surprised a few days ago, that is called Fox in Mombasa, and he's discussing his manifesto. But really, people are not paying attention to what you are talking about, because they come, they expect tea and biscuits and mandazi, and then on their way home, they expect you to give them fare. But he comes and he talks to them, and people are just yawning away.
He did a good thing, and more leaders should do precisely that, because this vicious cycle of chasing our tail, it's like, it is not a good thing. It is not a good thing. We are actually losing the gains we've made all these years with this nonsensical culture that we seem to be willing to die for. Because we are no longer looking for people who genuinely can bring about the change that we want. It's like somebody went and cursed us, or we've become demented. You're looking for someone whom you know from the get-go, this person is not going to do anything. You know and you can see. And then you justify it by saying, they never do anything anyway, so let me get up front. How much is going to give you? Does it even get to 1,000? And when you get 1,000, how long does it last? I mean, there's a certain madness that we have assumed as the normal way of thinking in this country. It'll be our doom. Because unless we get out of this trance that we are in, where we are constantly manufacturing and encouraging a system that is causing us more harm than we can imagine. How can you be happy to be put in a bus to go to a place you've never been to before because someone's going to give you 1,000 shillings? How long can 1,000 shillings last? Meaning we've given up to that stage where we no longer care, so we will just, it's okay, and then we'll still go and vote. Surely something is drastically wrong here.
And that is why I keep on wondering, when we organize presidential debates, or even debates for elected, people who are running for positions, there's a general assumption that after that debate, you're going to move voters in a particular direction. It now appears that all these debates are no more useful than publicity events. Because you can have a presidential candidate, he will come and he will present very sexy ideas. But if he has not mobilized using the tribal infrastructure, if he doesn't have financial resources, you can have all the best ideas in the world, but nobody is going to pay attention. Yeah. You even recall at some stage, I think President Kenyatta gave a presidential debate a white bath, and people expected he was going to be penalized. But guess what his supporters said? That debate is a waste of time. Why do you want to expose our candidates? But I decided to go, they would have said, that is a wise move. Let him go and teach people a lesson. So for us, we are going to vote for people informed by the Stockholm syndrome, that we are falling in love with our captors, or there's the wabi-sabi Japanese philosophy, that we find beauty in imperfections. So we say, huyu jamaa wanasema aliba lakini huyu ni mwizi wetu. Huyu bado ni wetu. And in my view, if we do not embrace meritocracy, then it's going to be a complete waste of time. When some of these young men or women come to Nairobi, then they are said to have made money. They go back to their churches in the villages. The religious leaders, when they see this kind of persons coming in, they give them ile kiti ya huko mbele kabisa. And they say, this young man who left the village 1 or 2 years ago, he has come to Nairobi and he has come back with blessings. And amepatiwa baraka. And these are the guys now you give a political office.
I once met former finance minister Francis Masahalia.
Yuko hada.
He was coming to, I was at Kenya Broadcasting at the time, visiting my mother. So I was waiting at the waiting area before I'm allowed in. And Francis was coming in to, alikuwa analeta matangazo ya kifo. First of all, he was dropped with a very modest vehicle. I think it was a Toyota Field or something at the time. He came, gave his whatever he was given, paid for matangazo, and said a few good mornings to the people who were there, and he left. And I looked at him and I was like, this is a former cabinet minister.
Not just a cabinet minister, finance.
Exactly, finance.
He has the yam and knife.
Yes.
Or rather, he had the yam and knife.
But the humility, he just came in. Again, going back to the crop that we were talking about, the crops of Akina Professor Saitoti and the Kibakis of this world and the Mishukis. And we do not have that right now. And even the way we politic, the way we speak to the crowds is no longer the same. You've mentioned about giving people 1,000 bob so that they can come to a rally. On Friday, I think it was, or the day before, we were with Mheshimiwa Robert Mbui, and one thing he was saying is that people are hoarded nowadays in buses to come to rallies because people in the villages where politicians actually go, number one, they don't even have the energy to be at the rally. Wamechoka ama wako na njaa ama they have better things to do in their farms. So for the people who are ferried from all these different locations to come and witness and clap for the politicians, what can be said about them? Because number one, if you're going to offer someone who's jobless, and we know right now people are extremely jobless in this country, 1,000 bob, that is 1,000 bob they didn't have, and this is an opportunity for them to make the money.
You know, that conversation should not start with why. The conversation should be start with the why it is they're in that position where they do not have that 1,000 bob. That's where the conversation is. Because if you're talking about a rural economy, there was a time when these subsistence farmers, who are our grandparents and some of our parents, could feed themselves. They actually fed themselves. They to the point where when you visited, you were given food to go back home with. They fed themselves. What they needed money for was probably sugar, salt, and a few things. But they literally fed themselves and fed some of us who lived in town. Now, the subsistence farmer simply needed to be encouraged to do better. Something went wrong when we brought in certain cash crops because, again, it may have interfered with that subsistence farming, but in many places where the government had a settlement scheme, it did not. Because the settlement schemes were organized so that there was a place where you could do a subsistence farming and there was a place where you could do your commercial farming. Okay? People were able to take children to school and do the very things. Very many people who you now find in towns and who went to school, their parents were farmers. They were not civil servants.
And also for any leader, they should be really very worried and get concerned when they're able to get such a huge crowd, a huge turnout on a weekday, Monday through Friday. Like today, if you go to any part of Kenya and you get a huge crowd, if you're an elected leader, then it should bother you that in fact your policies have failed. Because if you come, say, from a place where they grow tea or coffee, I doubt whether a farmer will abandon his duty to go and pick tea and come and listen to you for 1,000 bob. That, in my view, is a manifestation of a policy failure, and there are no two ways about it. But again, it's the same politicians who encourage this dependency syndrome because they know a voter who is empowered will have urgency to take very, very critical decisions and engage in critical thinking. For instance, we've posted this question before. We understand Lake Victoria is there's fresh water in that lake.
Yep.
It's got some of the best fish in the world. How come that fish is not sold in the European Union markets, in the UK, in US? Because if we empower the fish farmers around Lake Victoria, they have more money. They start watching DSTV and reading Financial Times and Economist. There's a very high chance that they'll become critical thinkers, and they will not entertain
mediocre politics.
Yeah, mediocre politics. Now, can you imagine when somebody wakes up in the morning to go and engage in fish farming or looking for fish? They come in the evening with their stock, but they're not able to keep the stock anywhere. So you have to sell everything. If you don't sell everything, the fish goes to waste. And then you wake up the following day and you repeat that cycle. And we are told that is the reason why there's incidences of HIV and, sexually transmitted diseases. Because now there's some women who are waiting. They know that these guys have gone fishing. In the evening, they'll come with a bumper harvest and they don't know what to do with the fish. But can you imagine if both the national and county governments had basic refrigeration facilities so that when you come with the fish, you can keep it somewhere. You know, for the longest time, fish from Lake Victoria used to be processed in Thika. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Fish from around Lake Victoria used to be processed in Thika. Why? If you don't dance to the drum beats of the political leaders, they will not allow you to invest in these fish infrastructure. And also people know that at the moment you get people who are empowered, they will not swallow
They will not sing to your tune.
Yeah, they will not. And that's not just limited to around the lake, it's all over. So some of these politicians are in fact very happy to maintain the status quo because that is how you manipulate people. Now, some people have made an industry of this. If you go to every shopping center in Kenya, there's a guy who refers to himself as the mobilizer ama as the chairman. So namwambia unaweza leta watu wangapi? Anakuambia mimi naweza kuletea
watu so
100. Watu so ama 1000 and then they've got a rate. Every person has got a rate. So you agree, it will mobilize the people, they'll get into a school bus painted yellow and then they'll be given something in the morning. I mean there's the first installment in the morning and then function ikisha jioni, then they get the balance.
Mkipiga makofi ya kutosha.
Yeah, so there even because of participation in the electoral process, there are people with specific tasks. Kuna wenye wanakuja na billboard, kuna kazi yao ni kupiga makofi, kuna nini. So
there are those who are supposed to boo your opponent and vice versa. They will also bring people to boo this opponent.
Now those are the hooligans now.
No.
Not necessarily hooligans.
No. Hooligans, that's a different cadre.
The
people who rain violence, those are specialists. That is the area of speciality. Okay? They're the singers, they're the people who boo, they're the hecklers. It's when he says it is an industry.
Proper division of labor.
Yes, it is. Your job is to do this.
You remember Kalonzo at some stage he was addressing a rally in Mombasa and he was booed. So these things are never ever spontaneous. I mean, like for instance, if you want
they're
to create,
spontaneously organized.
Yeah, if you want to create a perception that you become very solid, you are very popular, when you're going to address a rally, before arrival, you'll have about 200 boys. So when you're getting out of your car, all of them are struggling, as if they want to talk to you, they want to touch you, but they've been given a brief. You know, for the unsuspecting voter back in the village, they'll say, hey, huyu mbuvi squeeze amekuwa very powerful, is very popular, but all those guys are on your payroll.
Yeah.
I've seen a number of these politicians, they even get young men to carry these Fanta soda bottles, one on the left and one on the right, so as to appear that these guys actually have got weapons. So they put on tight jackets. So the unsuspecting Kenyan, this guy has become so powerful, so popular. Look at his level of security. He's got bouncers, he's got everybody, and all of them are armed. And on to them is just a bottle of water, which again can be converted to a weapon because some of those guys become goons. So for me, I think for us to make progress, we need to vote with our selfish interests in mind. If we don't do that, then it's going to be a complete waste of time. And if you look at other economies like, say, China, up to a certain level, they've embraced the meritocracy. That meritocracy is what is going to determine your upward trajectory, at least to a certain level. And the same happens with South Korea, the same happens with Singapore. But in Kenya, we don't seem to reward meritocracy as much.
Yeah. I look at how politicians in places like America, UK, and it is because we see most of their politics on TV. So, unfortunately, we will refer to them. But when you see them in their rallies, you see these guys down to earth, engaging with the voter directly. The voter has a microphone, they have a microphone, swali naulizwa, anajibu. And you can see them articulating some of those issues very well.
Well, do you know why that happens?
But here in Africa, our politicians, first of all, come in their Range Rovers.
Do you know why that happens?
And they have genuine town halls.
Yeah.
They have genuine town halls.
Yeah. Why does it happen?
When you have, over time, created systems which work, they're more important than the people. I don't need to know an MC or an MP for my child to get to school. In those places, your child is born, you more or less know the school that child will go to within the locality that you live in. All those things you don't need. If I'm a student and I need a student loan, the moment I will be eligible for that student loan.
You don't need your MP.
I do not need to know somebody who can talk to somebody who knows somebody.
Yeah.
And then people know their rights because they are taught. The leaders know these people know their rights. And they also know that the threshold that is required of accountability is high. That's why they resign. If there's even the slightest mention or whiff of impropriety, you say, okay, guys, let me step back. It is better for you. Not like these Kangumu types that we have here, where even when he knows he's wrong, he's daring you. We had people saying over their dead body, and they didn't die, but their jobs also came to an end.
And you see what I'm saying, Dismas. Here we call, there are their leaders. You call your leader Dismas. Tell me, what is this going to happen? How are we going to achieve this?
You can access them very easily.
Yeah, hapa tunaitanga wakubwa wetu nini? Igwe, mdosi, mkubwa.
And they come and talk down upon us. When you go to a country like the Nordic countries, Norway, Denmark, they place a huge premium on meritocracy. And Denmark is said to have the best education system in the world. And for you to become a teacher at whatever level, you must have a master's degree.
Yep.
You must have a master's degree. And the competition.
Same with Germany.
Yeah. And the competition.
Become a what again?
A teacher.
A teacher. Mwalimu. Class.
Oh, okay.
You must have a master's degree. And the competition, because it's a government scholarship.
Yes.
The competition is so stiff. In those societies, to become a teacher, they say is the highest
honor.
Calling.
Yes.
Is the highest honor.
And they are well rewarded.
Yes. So if you walk into a pub in the evening and you're a teacher, then now people can call you Igwe. But in Kenya, you in mwalimu, okay. Patia ya matumbo. Because we do, and you know, even from the basic level,
yes,
in those Nordic countries, it's a master's. Ndio anaanza kufundisha mtoto from the basics. But
we're talking about ECD. The childhood development.
The basics. And then when you look at the transnational, these are Transparency International, their reports about corruption. Again, the Nordic countries scores very highly because every person who takes a decision,
yes,
if it's about procurement or budgeting, at the local town hall, there must be a notice, there's publication. We are going to buy 10 reams of paper at this cost. And this is the supplier. So the levels of transparency,
accountability is high.
Just amazing.
Gentlemen.
Now, if you go to Japan before you take a commercial break,
right,
if you steal somebody's coin in Japan, you better commit suicide before the world gets to know.
Yeah, because aibu ni kubwa sana.
Yes.
Now, there's something on the Standard front page that says Raila incarnate, and also on the Daily Nation it says the war within. So they're more or less talking about the same thing, and this is what they're saying. Winnie Odinga has burst onto the national stage, igniting a succession battle that could redefine or fracture the Odinga political empire. Her fiery debut at ODM's 20th anniversary in Mombasa energized supporters and unsettled rivals, signaling her intent to shape a party already split by competing camps with Raila gone. ODM faces its most volatile moment in decades, an aging Oburu at the helm, rising factional tensions, and a bold new contender challenging the old order. Winnie's next move could determine the party's future. Then Winnie amekuwa captioned up hivi, and this is what she said. When it came to the matter of broad-based government, the people of ODM entrusted one person with the management of that relationship. That person was Baba Raila Amolo Odinga. That relationship is complicated. And then she goes, then the Nation is saying this about her. Winnie's hard tackle on Oburu during ODM Gala reveals family tensions. The broad-based relationship is complicated. Those managing it now, are they capable? Because it's only one Baba Raila Odinga who could manage it. So is she questioning baba mkubwa wake? I mean, mesema uncle nikambua si uncle. Kwa Kijaluo ni baba mkubwa. But for the sake of this conversation, she seems to be challenging her uncle and his capability to lead ODM, or are we misunderstanding it?
You know, first of all, with the exit of Raila Odinga, now the coast is becoming very clear. All of a sudden, people who are tiptoeing around critical issues have the energy to speak out. You have bishops, pastors, and priests, especially from Luo Nyanza, who now, all of a sudden, have developed appetite for calling a spade a spade. You may have listened to a speech someone delivered a few days ago from a bishop from Luo Nyanza.
Bishop Ongijo.
Yeah, he wouldn't have said that if Mr. Raila Odinga were alive. The speech is delivered in Mombasa. 99% wouldn't have been delivered if Raila Odinga were alive. So it means that Mr. Raila Odinga had suffocated so many people. In fact, there are many other politicians like Okoth Obado, Ivan Skidero, Odoyo Widi, who now have freedom to come and join competitive politics.
You're the first person who's mentioned Kidero without being asked.
Yeah, because in the past, these people tried to do things against Mr. Raila Odinga. They were punished. You'd also recall, at some stage, James Orengo and Professor Nyang' Nyong'o were punished for doing things against Raila Odinga. That in his parts of the world, Raila Odinga's word was good as law. Now, let's go to the financing of our political parties. Politicians, being very selfish human beings, passed the legislation called Political Parties Finance. The political parties are financed by taxpayers. So whether or not you are a member of ODM, you have insurable interests in following politics within ODM. Because guess what? The celebrations in Mombasa over the weekend were financed by Kenyan taxpayers.
Were they?
Were they?
Were they?
Who financed?
The ODM celebrations?
Yeah.
I'm assuming ODM.
Do they get money from the National Treasury?
Yes, they do.
So that money, where does it come from?
All right. I get the logic now.
Yeah.
I am actually questioning beyond that. Do we know how it was actually financed? That's really what I'm asking. And the answer is we can assume. Yeah, we don't. Do we really know it was financed? I don't know. Do you?
Well, my assumption is that because they are financed by National Treasury and maybe the elected members give a portion and maybe they've got a membership who give resources. So even if out of the entire bill of, say, 1 million, 10,000 comes from taxpayer resources, then again, we have valid expectations to develop interest. Now, in the event that they were not financed, the celebrations, they were not financed by taxpayers, then we should know who financed them. Do they have some donors? Do they have some interest groups who financed? And the person who financed, what is the beneficial interest in that financing?
Do we have a law that actually militates that when any party receives financing, it must be subject to public purview and public knowledge?
I think there's the Auditor General audits all these resources and could give an opinion. But now, given the fact whether or not they use taxpayer resources for the celebrations, ODM is financed by the taxpayer.
It is.
And it's unacceptable, therefore, for anybody from the Odinga family to attempt to run a public institution as if it's a family enterprise. What we witnessed the day before yesterday are two prominent family members fighting each other. It's as if it's their personal business. It's a personal enterprise. But this enterprise is financed by taxpayer resources. And guess what Dr. Buru Odinga said after the verbal altercation? That tukutane behind the tent.
Yeah.
Atuni mtoto wangu, tukutane behind the tent for this conversation.
Yes.
But ODM is a public institution financed by taxpayer resources. Why would you want to have a behind the tent conversation on a public matter? That is number one. Number two, one of the speakers was questioning whether there's anybody now within ODM to manage the broad-based relationship.
Yes.
And as far as she's concerned, right now, it appears that the person at the top has no capacity and says that ODM entrusted Raila Odinga with that responsibility. But
Dismas.
But Raila Odinga entrusted himself. He gave himself that responsibility. Did he consult the ODM rank and file before he went to the broad-based administration? No. He did not need to, because he's the only man with the yam and the knife within the political party. So in my view, it's unacceptable for members of the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga family to run or attempt to run or create a perception that ODM is a part of the family assets. That it falls in their family. No, they've got a list of assets. They've got a register of assets. It's unacceptable for them to attempt to run ODM as if it's a family business.
Okay. First of all, whatever Winnie Odinga said were those valid sentiments? Like, is it something that needed to be said?
Well, she made it was a long speech, but there was a valid statement, and understand according to the ODM constitution, a party leader shall be elected at an NDC. Although again, lawyers are giving it different interpretations. And also, she did ask a valid question that who within ODM can now manage this relationship. Now, the ODM infrastructure, as said, the party leader is Oburu Odinga. So essentially, without calling a spade, she has indicated in black and white that Dr. Oburu Odinga has no capacity, nor competence, nor the requisite infrastructure to manage this relationship. That is why that position should be subject to an NDC vote. Yeah, that is essentially what she's saying. And it seems to me that there are factions brewing within the family.
ODM,
within ODM.
There's ODM, the family, but there's the Raila family.
Jaramogi family, because Dr. Oburu Odinga may not be part of the Raila family, but the Jaramogi Odinga family, it appears like there's a stampede on who is going to control the political party. And again, she made some statements that these conversations are not going to be subject to boardroom conversations. They're not going to be subject to bedroom conversations. They're not going to be subject to pillow talk conversations. And one wonders exactly what she means. By these conversations. And in my view right now, what needs to happen within ODM, let anybody who thinks that they've got the right intellectual capacity to stand up and start offering the party leadership. Because as we speak right now, every ODM leader, elected or otherwise, has got a position about the political party. So everybody is saying everything. And one would even say that if in fact you claim that you respect Mr. Raila Odinga, you respected his vision, you want to cement his legacy, is the one who went to broad-based government and he said, we are going to be here till 2027 and we are going to have our presidential candidates. But he did not indicate who is the presidential candidate. What if the presidential candidate is William Samoei Ruto? He did not indicate who is the presidential candidate. And from backroom conversations, we are told that the people who took critical decisions was actually Dr. Oburu Odinga and Mr. Raila Odinga. They're the ones who took decisions. So that's why it's important that when people are managing public affairs and public institutions, these things are not dying behind the tent in the cover of darkness, that we do not know what is happening. In fact, the current conversation around broad-based administration reminds one of the MOU. You remember Raila said he had an MOU with Kibaki. So people kept on saying there was an MOU. But nobody knew what the MOU was all about. So right now there's a conversation that there was this discussion between President Ruto and Raila Odinga. In the public space, we are told that what brings them together is a 10-point agenda. And Junet said that if we implement the 10-point agenda, then we are okay. But increasingly, there are some voices that people may want to pay attention to within ODM. And one of those voices is Sama Tandi. Because I think he's really rocking the boat within the political party. And he has told people that the only reason why we have ODM is we want political power. That our party is not going to be domiciled in the streets. We've got sufficient street credentials. Now let's go to the boardroom. And he seems to be rocking the boat. There's a part of the ODM which is still very keen on going back to the streets and doing demonstrations. But Atandi has said no. And then also, it was a very passionate conversation by Mbadi, who said that Mbadi and Joe as well, they said, for the next election, they're either going to form government or they'll be part of a coalition. That they are sick and tired of being in the streets. And I think those are some of the sentiments that people need to pay attention to. However, the probability does exist that Kenya Kwanza administration, they're rubbing their hands with glee as they see ODM disintegrating. Because a strong ODM, a very strong ODM today, is actually a threat to President Ruto. Because if you've got a very powerful ODM, more powerful than when Mr. Raila Odinga was alive, then they can decide to run a presidential candidate. And if they do, they'll give President Ruto a very tight race. So in my view, it's not far-fetched to suggest that even the administration would be engineering the crisis within ODM, so that ODM breaks, and then you have a million political parties in the Raila Odinga strongholds, so that nobody comes out very strong to blackmail the president. And my suggestion is to some of these now political orphans is to look for seasoned political orphans to assist them manage their politics.
Yes.
You see now, like for instance, Okoth Obado became a political orphan long time ago. He's seasoned. Actually, if I was Okoth Obado, I would establish a consultancy and ask all these guys to come for classes or now to swim. Because right now, there are so many political orphans.
Yeah.
You may see them with a brave face up Mombasa, but they know their goose
has been cooked.
Yeah.
Let's talk about certain individuals here, and I'm going to choose them, and probably you'll let me know what you think about their political future as far as ODM is concerned. Secretary General Honorable Edwin Sifuna, where do you think he is as far as ODM party is concerned?
Well, for a long time he's been seen as a straight talker, somebody who calls a spade a spade, and he's been asking very, very deep and critical questions. And of course, he's been in most rooms when these decisions are being taken. Yeah. So when he speaks, it's there's merit in paying attention to what he's going to be talking about. But you see, he's not seen as an ODM insider properly, because you see, every political party has got insiders.
Okay.
Every political party has got insiders. Some of them are visible, some of them are not visible. So now the ones who are not visible within ODM obviously are uncomfortable with his brand of politics. Yeah. And till a few days ago, you remember, even Mr. Raila Odinga had to come to his defense and say that when Sifuna speaks, I'm the one he's speaking for the party, and that essentially means that he's speaking for me. But you see, also Mr. Raila Odinga was a master of double speak, and then I recall there was a member of the National Assembly from Coast, who has just come out and said, Mr. Sifuna, it was nice doing business. Please take a walk.
You're talking about Zamzam Mohammed, the woman rep for Mombasa.
Yeah, and how Joe spoke, that is not what somebody expected at that kind of a meeting. Because they said they were going to celebrate 20 years and they were going to celebrate Raila Odinga. But it became just a political rally where people were issuing threats, and ilikuwa vitisho mingi sana.
What did you make of Joe's speech?
I don't think he delivered a speech. I think he read the Riot Act. He read the Riot Act, and he said that anybody who thinks we are going to get out of the broad-based administration, we are going to teach you a lesson. And understand there's already bad blood between him and the Mombasa governor. So you can see there's already factions forming.
Wait, between Joho and Abdul Swamad?
Yes.
Factions forming, or factions that have existed. You know what I find interesting is this. If ODM was founded and his leader, people refer to him as an enigma, as controversial as he was in life, now in his passing away, controversy still follows him. What would you say about a party that has a public outing and airs out their differences? Is that a party that is disintegrating, or is that a party that is democratic, truly democratic? Because there is something about spontaneity. In the political sphere, you have to plan for spontaneity, which is a direct contradiction to actually the word
itself.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Now, why am I saying this? When stories are told with the hindsight of history, there are certain subtle amendments that are made. I'll give you an example of what I mean.
Okay.
What Dismas is talking about, Nyong'o and Orengo, is a view that is held by very many people.
Okay.
But if you go back into history, at no point, even during NDP, were those people together as such. For a brief moment, they were. Raila left, Orengo remained in NDP, Nyong'o was in SDP. These are contemporaries. If you ask me, at that point in time, they were competing. At that point in time. Because you could even say they were on par. People forget that even James Orengo stood for the presidency.
I remember.
So I'm simply saying that it isn't as though they were punished. If we look at James Orengo and we look at Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, what I see is Raila's ability to bridge any gaps that may have existed, because these were his competitors and these are people who became very close to him even within the party. If they had been punished, they would never have held any position, or they would have no gravitas within the ODM party. These guys were ministers. In that first handshake they had with Kibaki, they are now governors. And there are those who argue that in the absence of Raila's support, that would not have been possible. Okay? So I'm simply saying that when we look at narratives, there is the need to look at these narratives closely. But the narrative that I am looking at now is we look at our politics from some rather pure lenses that reflect more of something that is aspirational than is real. Real in terms of our politics, even in terms of the politics of the countries that we speak of. When you've had hundreds of years of independence, people forget the hundreds of years you had when you're fighting each other at every breath. I am talking about those Nordic countries. So by the time they actually got to the point where they realized, this is a waste of time, man, they had done stuff. Now, we are at a point in our history where party politics is moving away from personalities. When President Kenyatta died, Moi took over. With the death of these two politicians, party politics started fading as we knew it, or the dominant party politics. Then we got into a very interesting era of the Kenyan style, coalitions. One was forced on us in the year 2007. There was a partial one in around 1997 when Raila's party merged with the KANU. I'm calling it Kenyan style because this is one party joining another. And we've had these cobbled up coalitions for quite some time. It's our way. But with Raila's passing away, the only legacy, what you may call traditional party leader, is Kalonzo. Because he has been there long enough as a leader of a certain community. But there are changes. Within his backyard, there are more than one. There are other parties as well. It's just that they don't have the sort of traction that he has. And there are leaders who even stand out. The fundamental difference with Raila's stronghold was there were very few you could compare him with, if at all.
He had no peers.
Actually, I think there's none.
He stood, he was head and shoulders above everybody else. Now, this is the context. When such a person passes away, how are we comparing his passing away with any other situation that we've had? When the political party that he has morphed in the way it has, and everything about it is unusual to any political formation that we know of, even as we look around countries on this continent. A leader who loses election after election, and then the complete opposite of what you anticipate happens, he gets to become more popular with every election loss. How do you even explain that? And his party, it's like it gathers more and more and more people. And yet within the structure, you see something very interesting. Everything seems to depend on this person. The fundamental difference with these so-called bigger, older democracies is that same power is actually held by the party. It is the party that determines the direction, but even within the party, there will be individuals who are known to be powerful, who if you cross, you're done for, who if they side with you, you'll be able to actually do well. That's why these big parties have something they call safe zones. Meaning, if they want you to win an election, they take you to a part of the country where they know they are extremely popular, and it doesn't matter who you are, they'll elect the party. Now, we have had a unique situation in Kenya where our political leaders actually are the party. That is really the truth.
Yeah, it's actually the powerful politicians who create these special purpose vehicles, and everybody within the political party has to serve their selfish interest. You disagree with them, you get into trouble. And that is part of the reason why the independence parties are beginning to have trouble. Like, for instance, when you look at ANC, at some stage, ANC in South Africa was very, very powerful. That at the moment you took over the leadership of ANC, it was assumed you will become the head of state because of the sheer power of the political party. But slowly they've been going south. Till the last election, they had to cut a deal with the DA for them to maintain
Democratic Alliance,
for them to maintain office. And now President Ramaphosa has to go back to a certain inner room with the party leadership and ask themselves, during the next elections, are they going to go further south, or now they want to reverse the trajectory? And it's the same thing we were discussing the other day about Tanzania. That if you're going to have reforms in Tanzania, it has to be CCM, because CCM as a political party is extremely powerful. The word is as good as law, and they've now established an equivalent of a commission of inquiry to find out the circumstances under which there were violence. And President Suluhu Hassan says that is going to inform how the political trajectory in Tanzania. And unknown to majority of the Kenyan population, that actually the government of Tanzania gave all presidential candidates 3 top-of-the-range vehicles. They were given state security, and they were given allowances,
even when they were in jail,
for their campaigns. Well,
even when they were in jail,
the ones who were on the ballot.
Those were on the ballot. Tindulis was not in the campaign because he had said no reform, no election, and part of the reason why the opposition parties in Tanzania suffer is that CCM on its own is so strong, is so wealthy, it's all over Tanzania, and it's grounded on a certain idea. So that when you have the presidents coming and leaving, coming and moving on to the next life, the party doesn't collapse.
Okay.
Kanu, during the time of President Kenyatta, Kanu was nothing. I'm talking about President Jomo Kenyatta. Yeah, Kanu was nothing to write home. Really nothing to write home about. But when President Moi took over, and you remember Moi came from Kadu, he made Kanu a very powerful machinery. You'd recall that it owned many assets, we are told, including KICC. But again, with his exit, because again he was the glue holding together the political party, Kanu now is a pale reflection of itself. I mean, if Gideon had not been interested in politics, then Kanu would be something we would be studying in history books. That once upon a time, there used to be a political party called Kanu. And you remember, we had a group called Kanu Youth Wingers. That had even ties, collaterals. There are some stage, if you're going to a government office and you expected positive outcomes, you needed to have a Kanu tie. You needed to have a Kanu lapo over here. That you needed. You remember there was a politician, CTI, I recall it was Kariuki Chotara, who says that if you don't have the one finger salute, then you're not going to make progress.
Yeah.
So he made the political party. Actually, he made himself very powerful within the political party, and that is the tragedy which is going to fall ODM if the ODM leadership do not read from the same hymn book. In my view, there is merit in the leadership going on a vacation with these management experts to lead them in a healing process, because all of them right now, they are reading from a million
scripts.
They're dancing to different beats.
Are they really?
Kuna Ndombole solo. So everybody's dancing.
No, but are they really reading from a different script? Because the very things that we're now seeing out in the open were there. Look, one thing that is a guarantee in any political system is that every leader will have people who surround him. Every leader will have advisors, will have whisperers. Every. The Tsar of Russia, Alexander, had a whisperer called Rasputin.
That spiritual leader of his.
That guy.
Who had very weird...
The exorcist.
He was an addict, but yes.
Yes, he was. He had many issues. But the point I'm trying to make is that if we look at the political formations that we have, and I want to look at it as this is the growth of the Kenyan political environment and the trajectory that it has taken. We have a situation where a party that was known to be just about the most vociferous party you could come across, opinionated, always challenging things. Now, that nature doesn't really go away. What they seem to be doing now is challenging each other. And are we interpreting this challenging each other and offering opinions that seem to be at odds with each other, that is a sign of disintegration? Or is it just we are seeing the true color of the party and everyone coming up to speak and say what it is that they see? Remember the tale of the elephant and the blind person, depending on who's holding what. Someone holds the leg and says, this elephant is this. Someone holds the tail, says, and so forth and so forth. So this party, I am loath to try and even predict what will happen to the party, because I really can't predict. I'm not a political prophet. But no, I'm not. But what I see happening is a discussion that anybody who wants to study should study it very, very keenly. Because if you have a party that has so many strong voices and very loud voices, that isn't the sign of a weak party. That's a sign of a very, very strong party.
When Mr. Raila Odinga was alive, all those voices existed. So they would have those conversations in the various party structures.
Yes.
And come up with a position. They would have ferocious ideas, cross-pollination. Everybody brings ideas to the table, so all of you have a conversation. But at the moment Mr. Raila Odinga pronounces himself, the matter comes to rest. Now, when they go to the public space, all of them are dancing to an agreed position. But when you have this kind of event like what we saw over the weekend, whereby anybody and everybody is reading the Riot Act, even others making ODM members begin to wonder whether or not ODM is a public entity or it's a private enterprise financed by taxpayers. From a discipline perspective, in my view, they're not making very good progress. And every political party has got a disciplinary committee. That if you do a particular mistake, they kick you out, or they discipline you, or they recall you. Like in South Africa, they can recall you. That is what they did for Thabo Mbeki,
President Zuma,
or even the Malema. So they've got all these hierarchy. What it is saying is very solid, because when you're in a room and it's assumed that OD stands for democracy, not dictatorship, you cannot have all your conversations. But at the moment you agree on a position, when you come to the public space, it has to be the same messaging aligned to the leadership interests. But that is not the obtaining environment within ODM. However,
yes,
because they're going through the healing process, again, the probability does exist.
Yeah.
That at some stage,
yes,
there'll be cool waters and they'll come up with an agreeable position.
Someone else I need to ask you about. So you've answered me about Sifuna. Caleb Amisi.
Caleb Amisi seems to be that person who is rocking the status quo, but from an outsider perspective. Because for the longest time he's been coming up with messaging saying that he's one of the people who have suffered most because of ODM, that he ran in a place which ordinarily does not vote for ODM, and is unhappy with the status quo. So are you asking whether or not he can become a presidential candidate?
No. I'm talking about their future, their future within and outside the party.
Well, I think he's in that group that wants to rock the boat, and depending on how the broad-based ODM approaches it, people now like Mbadi and Atandi, then they may make his life a bit of a complication.
We'll get to Atandi. These are the gentlemen. So you've
Atandi or Wandai?
Atandi.
Just want to confirm.
Yeah, Atandi. The other person I wanted to ask is Babu Owino, MP of Mbakasi East.
Babu Owino, even before the death of Raila Odinga, one would see the signs that he wanted to bolt, that he wants to run for Nairobi governor, and he suspects that ODM may not give him a ticket. And it seems among all the politicians within ODM, is the one who had done a scenario and sensitivity analysis very early in the day, and he knew they were not going to give him a ticket.
Yes.
And even the speech he delivered in Mombasa, he said, what makes you think that I cannot become a party leader? When you are dishing out these positions, why are you doing it to my exclusion? Why don't you give me a chance? And one of the things that Babu Owino has managed to do is create emotional connection with a good part of his voter base. Okay. But while he plans to run for the Nairobi governor, people should not underestimate the current governor. People shouldn't underestimate
that is Honorable Sakaja.
And why not?
Honorable Sakaja. Sakaja has been a politician. When you look at his trajectory, at every point in time, when you look at it from a distance, you actually think that he's making a mistake. But when you check the scoreboard, he comes tops.
So does that indicate that he himself is an excellent politician, or he's an excellent politician who knows how to align himself appropriately so that he moves on to the next stage?
I think he's got this unique capacity of reading the political mood and also playing numbers. Understand he's an actuary. You know, from the time he left the Vijana na Kibaki, or it was Kibaki tena, and then made his way to President Kenyatta's inner sanctum.
Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah, so President Uhuru Kenyatta's inner sanctum. Then he became you remember a movie, I think you were young at that stage, but he led the TNA when he was a very young man, and people wouldn't imagine that he would deliver results.
He was given the position to lead the TNA. He had nothing that would have given him the temerity or the ability to lead the party. He was wind assisted to be in a certain leadership position.
I was actually, I voted in the election that TNA became.
That was the first time you voted?
No, it was actually...
He has been voting. This guy has been eating maize for a long time.
He's been around the block for a while.
The first time I voted was in the 2007 election. That was my first vote.
We are not going to ask you how you voted.
Yeah.
No.
You voted at the ballot box.
But yes, you were saying something.
Yeah, so you underrate rights of Governor Sakaja
at your own risk.
At your own risk.
Actually, why? Why would somebody want to write him off? You see, if somebody knows how to position themselves, that's a talent.
Yes.
It's an ability.
And he's got that talent.
He may not necessarily have a voter base, but he probably doesn't need one. He needs to align him. Yes, he just knows how to align himself with somebody who has a voter base that can support him for that position. Yes.
And he hits the high notes at the scoreboard.
All right. You've brought up the issue of Governor Sakaja. And of course, now we see Babu Owino is interested in that position. I'd like to compare as much as I'm not...
And then many others. There's also Irungu Nyakera, who was indicated interest as well. From
yes,
DCP.
we actually hosted him a while back. But I want to compare these two individuals, that is now Sakaja and Babu Owino. If you look at Babu Owino's style of politics, it's somewhere similar to that of Mike Sonko. And the people of Nairobi seemed to like that of Mike Sonko. So is it possible that he might inherit that constituency that was in love with Sonko's style of doing things and perhaps end up with that, carrying the day because of that particular style?
The probability of inheriting Sonko's constituency is almost zero. Because Sonko has got a very unique style or brand of politics.
Yes.
Can you imagine somebody who has served as a governor for Nairobi for one term? In the middle of the night, he says, this time round.
He didn't even complete that term.
Yeah, but
Then go on.
Yeah, and then in the middle of the night, he wakes up and he says, I want to run for governor.
Mombasa.
And he has a real chance of winning. He has a real chance of becoming governor for Mombasa. I think Sonko is a unique politician in Kenya. Out of 47 counties, there's a very high probability that Sonko can run in at least 3 counties and win. He can run in 3 counties and win. If Sonko decides that he's going to run in Kisumu, he can become a powerful force. And you see something unique about Sonko. Well, I understand he is a Mkamba, but he's not seen as a Mkamba. There's something unique about him. There are sharp students who are studying masters or PhD can actually study this gentleman called Sonko.
Mike Mbuvi Sonko.
Yeah, Mike Mbuvi Sonko.
He's the first politician we've actually had who was tribeless. Genuinely tribeless. His name is Mbuvi, like we know who. But that didn't move the needle. If you knew Sonko and the people around him, it did not reflect that ethnicity that was reflected on his name at all. And even the way he went about his business. You're right when you say that's a man who should be studied. I personally found him very endearing. Because there are people who kept saying, but he's educated. I said, wait, can you see how this person resonates with the Mwananchi? Very few people can do what this man does. He goes to a place and somehow he knows how to read that moment. He knows exactly what he needs to do. When the MP for Kibra died, Okoth, as usual, politicians go talk. Sonko, pole sana nini, nimetoa basi kadhaa for people to know that there are so many people. Pesa ya refreshment pia nimetoa. Pesa hii nimetoa.
Watu wakazike mheshimiwa.
Yes.
Hakuna story nyingi.
Who do you think won the day?
He went to, just the other day, Mama Lucy Hospital, and paid bills for over 100, and I think there were 30 women who had been in hospital. They couldn't leave because of various bills. He paid to the tune of, I think it was almost 2 million, 1 point something million. And again, going back to what CT is saying, that brand of politics, I have not seen Babu Owino, of course, pay for 150 women. I have not seen him provide buses for people to go and mourn.
Yeah, but he's philanthropic as well.
Yes.
Maybe not to the same levels.
Yes, of course. Now, and the reason why I'm comparing these two individuals is because they both had interests in Nairobi, have interests.
Sonko was flamboyant. Okay? And the thing that one noticed about him, and probably one of the reasons why people liked him, he was a man people said when he said he was going to do something, he actually did it.
Yeah.
See? And he was not highbrow.
He kept his word.
He was a man who would attend meetings with Wananchi. You didn't need to queue for long hours to see the man. All I'm saying is this. When you look at people who are followed easily, Michuki was followed easily. You know why? He took a stand when people who had been before him and with him did not take a stand. People followed him.
Actually, Michuki is known for taking unpopular decisions.
Yes.
Provided they're the right decisions.
And they're for the benefit of the people. So people resonate with that decision and they support him.
Yeah, like for instance, when he said he's going to reform the Matatu sector, the Matatu said they would be on strike. And the Kenyans knew they were going to bleed if Matatus are on strike. The Love Challenge is going to work. They'll work for hours on end, for kilometers.
Yes.
But they said while this decision is unpopular, it's aligned to our long-term selfish interests. Mr. Michuki, we are going to support this thing to the hilt.
We will walk.
We will walk. And he introduced the discipline. And guess what happened after he left? When Chirawal Makwere came, all the reforms disappeared.
Fizzled.
They melted. And then again, now that raises another question. The systems that Michuki created, did he create systems or it was the system?
No.
That the system was no longer working when Makwere came in?
He created systems. The way systems work is not that they're created, but that they're entrenched. He was moved. Had that man not been moved and had stayed there for a much longer time, it would have, something that is entrenched becomes the culture and the norm. It didn't have time to grow roots. It was established, but it was not entrenched. When Chirawal Makwere came, as I said, let me be polite, it fizzled.
Yeah.
Okay? It fizzled. Now, I'm comparing that sort of leadership, and I'm saying, and why I brought Sonko up, that was his leadership style. I remember an aunt of mine telling me, this man would go to the Buruburu. He didn't do it every day, by the way. He went to the Buruburu shopping center one day. If you know Buruburu, it's a big shopping center. And told everybody who was there to shop what they wanted for an hour. You shop what you want. And he'd pay.
Wow.
And he paid. So what went
Those
around?
are the supermarkets.
Yes, supermarkets. And he paid. Whatever, he wasn't holding you back. People kept praying, when is Sonko going to come back?
That hour.
Maybe on the day that I am there. Then there was the Matatu business. You may not have liked his politics, but look at how it resonated. It tells you that this man had understood a need that people had in what they probably believed a leader should do for them. And this man seemed to actually present himself as the leader who understood it. Raila Odinga was a completely different leader. Didn't go to any supermarket to give people anything free. But what he had stood for and the price he had paid was in the public domain, and people knew this guy has taken some very unpopular stands. And we know what it has. And he was consistent with it. And he took steps that politicians that we see now don't take. He disagreed, he moved. He disagreed, he moved. Now, most people are afraid that if they move, that will be the end of them. He seemed to start new outfits, and we seemed to work. But the reason why they worked, if you listen to even his conversation, his conversation always revolved around the people. His conversation.
Yeah, actually, every time Raila loses an election, or when he's not declared the winner, people write a political obituary.
Yeah.
Wanasema story yake imeisha. But after a few days,
He makes a comeback.
he comes back stronger. When you least expect him, is at Arambe House, shaking hands
with whoever is in power.
When you least expect him, is at State House with President Ruto.
Yep.
Or even before then, with President Moi. He had, I think, his capacity for metamorphosis was extremely high.
Yeah, indeed it was. So now we can talk about Samuel Atandi. What do you think his weight is as far as ODM is concerned?
Well, first of all, there is the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Shows that he was not your ordinary member within ODM. Because, those positions were dished by Mr. Raila Odinga. He places you wherever he thinks you are going to serve. And he's come out and told politicians, especially from Luo-Nyanza, that we are not going back to the streets. Whatever change we want to implement in Kenya, it can be done in the boardrooms. And his argument is suggesting that for you to become a leader, while having street credentials is an added advantage,
yes,
but you must now demonstrate your intellectual capacity. That you understand the nation and you know where the nation is going to. If I were in ODM, I would pay attention to his brand of politics, because right now he's making statements which make some of his peers and seniors very nervous. Like, for instance, anytime he makes a statement, James Orengo becomes nervous. So I don't know whether or not he wants to run for governor in Siaya. So that is somebody people need to pay attention to.
What makes you think James Orengo is nervous?
Well, James Orengo earned his credentials outside law in street protests. And you remember he was even expelled from the University of Nairobi because of student activism. And he's very, very, when it comes to human rights, fighting for people, his best option is to use the streets. Now, that is from an activism perspective. But again, when you come to the IQ, people refer to him as an encyclopedia.
Okay.
That is... the way he understands law in Kenya can only be compared to Mutula Kilonzo. You remember Mutula Kilonzo was also regarded as an encyclopedia.
Yes.
And it's for that reason that Raila made sure that he's part of his kitchen cabinet. There's even a time when he was running for senator for Siaya that he did not need to do much campaign, because Raila Odinga said, we have got a very important national assignment.
Yes.
And don't make it complicated for James Orengo. He does not need to be around here campaigning. Let's address the national issues. This is the kind of capacity I need at the National Assembly. So understand, I don't know whether it's a narrative, but understand he won even without printing a poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you
alishinda saa 11
asubuhi before people went to the ballots. He had already won. Yeah. But because he sees himself as one of the politicians who can take over from Raila Odinga, I think he's trying to position himself in that manner, but he's using an old template. So again, there's merit in him going back to his study room and find out what is working today. Because at some stage, it was fashionable to go to the streets and cause all manner of demonstrations, especially as young Turks when they wanted Section 2A amended, and then after that, coming up with the new constitution. But right now, the constitution that James Orengo, among others, fought for, has got inbuilt mechanisms on how to bring the change you want in Kenya. So the older templates may not deliver results. And these young politicians are coming up and saying, it's time.
Dismas, you are a student of history. Mature and overripe democracies still have demonstrations, Bwana. There are points that are made clearer with demonstrations and with large numbers of people demonstrating. We see them even today in this so-called mature, because it's long been established. People get into power and they forget certain things. So a little reminder of people power is necessary. But let me ask you a question. Okay, Paul, I'm asking the question to you as well.
Yes.
If you look at the things that we've been discussing, and we're looking at the politics of ODM, and the process of maturation that ODM is following, is it possible to argue and to say that this is probably the best thing that could have happened to the party and to the nation as they watch ODM? And I'm going to explain why I'm asking the question. I'm asking the question because whenever we come across something that makes us uncomfortable, something that doesn't follow certain script, choreographed party lines and so forth, and it's all over the place, it reminds one of Raila and what he stood for. Raila made a lot of people uncomfortable. His brand of politics was not comfortable for most people. It was extremely uncomfortable. But that discomfort is what brought about these changes. So I don't expect that a party that he led was not going to exemplify the very ethos that that man himself represented. But does that necessarily mean that it is the disintegration of the party?
Well, let me answer before the expert answers. But I think perhaps Raila needed to retire from politics kitambo kidogo, so that we can see this, whatever is happening within ODM while he is still alive, so that he can either witness the end of his legacy or the extension of it. So yes, I think in a way this has been a blessing to the country. I don't know if that is a blessing to the country, because I do not know the kind of impact ODM will have going forward. So
for me, I think to use your words, it's a blessing for democracy, because ODM, D stands for democracy, not a dictatorship. The fact that while Mr. Raila Odinga was around, the party rank and file would not speak up, would not air their positions, and now they've got the opportunity. Because in the past, if Raila is wrong and you tell him you are wrong, probability of you being punished is extremely high. So in my view, let anybody and everybody within ODM come up with their positions. Let them sell those ideas in the marketplace. Let them go through a healing process and even organize an election within ODM, so that they're the most popular people who are going to be elected, either because they can do tribal mobilization or they can sell their ideas, then they win an election. Because, as it were, ODM is such a strong political party, a strong political player, just to be left to ODM. So in my view, anybody within ODM, if you feel that you've got a voice, please come up, speak. And as Ken Matiba said, let the people decide. Because we're going to use ODM as a template for other political parties. So let them go through the motions. The ones who want to take a walk, wajipange. The ones who want to go now register ODM Asili, ODM whatever it is, let them register. Let them people intellectual catfights. And then eventually the water will find its level. And then now you'll have a very strong political party. Actually, in my view, all political parties in Kenya now need to pay attention to ODM, and also for them to run their own elections, because I don't know whether there's any political party in Kenya which has had an election, but I recall ODM attempted, and you remember how the men in black checked in and scattered the process. Because, again, as we said earlier on, all Kenyans have valid expectations that any political party funded by taxpayers, there must be a democracy, the members must be accountable. So let them go and throw everything they want to do, the kitchen sink, kila kitu, so that we can celebrate a new beginning.
But consider also, is this not then an opportunity for a leader to emerge? Because if we take the view that there are differences that could lead to disintegration, don't we then have an opportunity for somebody who can actually unify these people? Because here is a party, here are all these voices that, in my mind, they are not discordant. They're just loud, and there is an element of them being at variance. But if someone can unite this group in whatever formation, in whatever manner, would that then not be an opportunity for somebody to actually emerge within that? Because if you look at places where you've had strong leaders, other leaders who come up fight their way up there. At that point, nobody's going to give it to you.
And if somebody can assist, somebody who emerges, say, from the ODM infrastructure, starting from the time it was started, from the time of President Kenyatta, where you have Ruto, where you have Musalia, all the Pentagon members, if somebody can emerge and after all this turbulence, steady the ship, then that person can easily say that having made sure that ODM is aligned, I'm now ready for national leadership. You can use that one as a, as a talking point. You can use it as a bonga point to say, I'm now ready for national leadership.
Okay. Now that we've come to the end, final words maybe towards what we are seeing here, and specifically the last person I'll ask you about is Winnie Odinga's political future.
Well, the yesterday she did, I mean the day before yesterday, she did ask valid questions, but unfortunately, people now interpreting the questions she was asking as a continuation of a family feud. You remember the Romeo and Juliet, the Montagues, and I've forgotten some of the actors. Yeah, so people don't want to start looking at ODM as a family property.
Yep.
That it's a kiosk they run across the road, and everybody else is a squatter. No, and that is the impression she creates. While she's asking very valid questions, she created a wrong impression. And then you remember last time when we were here, we predicted that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was going to do a good job in ensuring that Kenyans who are held in
incognito,
who are released. And you did pose a question that is it that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is actually doing backroom diplomacy to make them come out? And shortly after that, they were released. And I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, under the leadership of Salem Davadi, did a good job. And the Sun Kenya's High Commissioner to Uganda, Josh Mangi, did an amazing job in coordinating. But the reason why I create that issue is also connected to the conversation we've been having in Saudi Arabia about Kenyans who are there. I mean, Kenyan women who've given birth. And for some reason, because of the legal framework within Saudi Arabia, they cannot get birth certificates or they cannot be registered. As we talk about the benefits of globalization, marketing and production, in my view, it's very important that when you're a Kenyan and you want to go to Uganda, before you go to Uganda, understand the local operating environments. Be reminded that they don't work with the Kenyan constitution. If you're going to Saudi Arabia and, for instance, they don't approve of extramarital affairs or getting children out of wedlock,
which they don't,
you must respect the local laws. If you're going to say Russia, and Russia understand the legal framework does not allow foreigners to demonstrate, you cannot demonstrate. So if in Kenya you can demonstrate at the drop of a hat, and you go to Russia, you demonstrate, and the local laws are checking, why would you want to blame Nairobi for that? In my view, there is that room for intercultural competence, so that we don't keep on blaming Nairobi for some of the mistakes we have done for failure to respect the local laws.